First up, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reached Washington, D.C. today to begin the second leg of his three-tour nation. Now, he will hold first face-to-face meetings with U.S. President Donald Trump since he took office. Defense, trade, counter-terrorism and economic cooperation is expected to top the agenda. President Trump, ahead of Prime Minister Modi's arrival, took to Twitter. He said, and I quote, "Look forward to welcoming India's Prime Minister Modi to White House. Important strategic issues to discuss with a true friend." End quote. On Friday, while addressing the media, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said that the talks between both the leaders would be robust. He said again, and I quote, "The President and the Prime Minister will discuss ongoing cooperation, including counter-terrorism, defense partnership in the Indo-Pacific region, global cooperation, burden sharing, trade, law enforcement and energy. I think it's going to be a very robust discussion." End quote. Ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit, America cleared the sale of 22 Guardian drones. The deal is seen by many defense experts as a key game changer in the Indo-US ties. The concerns of a possible revamp to H-1B visa rules is expected to remain a key focus of the talks. And Prime Minister Modi is under immense pressure to settle the issue of H-1B visa for Indian nationals, which has hampered the IT trade between the two nations. And Prime Minister Modi is most likely to persuade President Trump to liberalize the visa policy, as Indian companies contribute significantly to the Indian economy. On the other hand, the United States is expected to raise the issues related to ease of doing business, need for easy licensing and intellectual property rights. Now, under the new Trump administration, the relations between both countries, which fostered under former President Barack Obama, have suffered a major setback as US is seeking support to India's major South Asian rival China to counter North Korea's nuclear program. Prime Minister Modi will be hoping to ensure that Trump administration reinforces faith in various commitments made by the Obama administration, and most importantly, India's inclusion to the nuclear surprise group. Another interesting point to note is that this will be the first time both the leaders will meet after US pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. During his address, back then Trump had criticized India and China as major fund benefactors from the deal. It is expected that Modi will persuade Trump to bring the agenda of climate change back on the table. Apart from high-level delegation meetings with President Trump and his cabinet officials, Prime Minister Modi will also hold talks with the CEOs of top American companies. And to discuss more on this, we have the former ambassador and the founding president of IFA, Mr. Surendra Kumar. Welcome, sir, to the WION headquarters. And also joining us from Washington is Steve Herman, who's a Washington, bureau chief and a reporter right there. Thank you both for joining us on the broadcast. Let me come to you first, Mr. Kumar. How important is Modi's current US visit during the Trump presidency vis-a-vis his earlier visit when Obama was president?
It's very, very important. I mean, the US is our most important trade partner. US is our most source of scientific, technological innovations and all that. There are so many gamut of issues which we are dealing with. There are more than 70 missions going on. I personally feel contrary to the views expressed by some skeptics in some kind of doomsayers. I personally feel this will be a very productive visit. And one of the reasons is I wrote an article yesterday which says that may the deal makers par excellence make the best deal possible, because they both really want to have the relations go forward. And Modi has almost become a veteran of foreign affairs. In the last 3 years, the kind of leadership he has handled, from Obama to, let's say, Merkel in Germany, your French president, you went to Canada, Australia, and he has been the most visiting Prime Minister of India. I personally feel he has the wisdom, he has the experience, and he has the knack of making a personal relationship with all the world leaders. If you say Obama, he has never met. He met for the first time. And he really, you can imagine, you remember he came at a time, his first time White House as a chief guest, in whose honor there was a dinner, which he did not eat. He was having a Navaratri fast and he created kind of thing. But next day, President Obama accompanied him to Lincoln Memorial. So he has this knack of making personal, I think President Trump and Mr. Modi will strike a very personal relationship, It will augur well for India-US relations, and I'm very positive about the productive results.
Right. Also, coming to you, Steve, uncertainty that, Trump has brought to the world stage. China has been a major player in the international arena for some time. But with US turning inwards and more protectionist and in sort of an isolationist, is India in the position to play a right role as a middle power?
Oh, absolutely. This is a huge opportunity for India to take things as far as regional and even global leadership much farther. And we see other countries stepping into this void. In Europe, of course, not only Germany, but with Emmanuel Macron now in Paris, the French are taking a more prominent leadership role. And I think that the United States would be comfortable with India being more assertive in South Asia because it sees that its goals are so closely aligned with India in the region, especially on the issue of terrorism.
Right, Stephen. And Ambassador, just to counter that question, do you feel that Washington would use India as a balance for China's rise, especially in the Asia-Pacific region, if we talk about?
Well, this whole question of balancing is really not here, not there. Each administration tries it. During President Obama, we had no US revalence, US revert in Asia. Now, President Trump may not have that kind of emphasis, but still this Asia region is very important. People say 21st century is going to be the century of Asia. When you talk about Asia, you talk about what? You talk about China, you talk about India, you talk about Japan, you can't ignore. And the ASEAN region as a whole, this is the most growing region. No president, whether US or whether German chancellor, nobody can ignore it. Now, when you call, but robustness is not in terms of really how we strongly articulate. Robust is finding a diplomatic way. Let's face it, China is a growing major power. Whether US and nobody can ignore it. At the same time, in the global context, we all will like that China plays by the international laws. China plays by the conventions. And so long as all these countries can strike that kind of relationship, that you make sure that China grows, but not at the cost of others. China follows international rules. China plays by the rules and doesn't threaten its neighbors, doesn't threaten anybody else. And it is China, we all countries have been following 3 C's. You compete with China, you engage with China, and you also, at some places, not necessarily confront, but oppose or sometimes put a counterpoint of view. So I personally feel that India has a role to play. And India, US are partners. After when Obama came, what we had? We have signed a joint vision for Asia Pacific region and South Asia region. Now that vision is still there, and that vision doesn't change with the change in White House. I personally feel the long-term national interest of USA and India will try to show it to all those who are concerned that India and US have to cooperate and collaborate, and that's the best policy to deal with China and others.
Absolutely, Ambassador. And also, Steve, recently US has come closer to China as it requires Beijing's support to tackle North Korea. What does it mean for the Indo-US relationship then?
Well, I don't know necessarily that it's sort of a zero-sum game, that if China gains influence, India loses. I don't think anyone here is seeing it that way at all. And I think the China-U.S. policy, the relationship, is still very much a question mark. Again, we can sort of see some subtle changes that are occurring from some recent tweets of the president, where he seemed to be expressing some frustration that China had not been able to make any headway with North Korea, and then threw in I'm not recalling the exact words, but something to the effect of, well, at least the Chinese tried. And if China's how China is viewed in the White House is going to be judged solely on how it is able to apply leverage to North Korea, then that's going to be I'm sure most observers would say, something that's questionable in assessing the Sino-U.S. relationship. And again, I think also with India, it's not going to be just one issue. Sure, there's the trade deficit. There is the issue about the H-1B visas, and we're told by White House officials that that is not formally on the agenda, but if India raises it, it will be discussed. The counterterrorism aspect is another part of the relationship as well. So I don't think we can just reduce it to if China's up, then India's down. It sort of reminds me in the past that there was this obsession in South Asia, both in Islamabad and in New Delhi, looking at everything that the United States did or said vis-a-vis, Pakistan or India for deciding who was up, who was down in the relationship. There's absolutely no doubt now that as far as the India-Pakistan situation, that the United States is much more aligned now with India, and it'll be interesting to see just how much attention is paid to Pakistan by this president here. Although we have a very capable person now in charge at the National Security Council, Lisa Curtis, who has tremendous experience in the region, and she's working for H.R. McMaster, a general who is considered a very capable person in the NSC as well. And then, of course, General Mattis over at the Pentagon. So they, I think, will help craft the president's views towards South Asia as a whole.
Right, Steve. Ambassador Kumar wanted to add something there.
No. I agree with him. There is no really direct conflict that it is China or India. No, both are important for US. They will try. He referred to trade deficit. Yes, we do have trade deficit, but if you look at the global context, our trade deficit with US is only $30-point-some billion. USA enjoyed trade with China $347 billion. 10 times bigger. The trade deficit itself is not the criteria parameter how you want to have relations. You have huge trade deficit with China, still you want to have, because that's an emerging power there. Similarly, we talk IT. IT sector has been used for the right reasons because a lot of concern here, and a lot of remarks have been made. But if you really see, India-US relation is so huge now, so multi-dimensional. It can't be just on one issue. Even IT sector, some of the big giants, Chandrasekharan, Tata, just 3 days back said, business as usual. Wipro, Infosys, all are saying, yes, we will have to make adjustment, we will have to go for new approaches, new technology, maybe new upgrading. But at the end of the day, it is not going to be such a huge really adverse effect. They have already announced they will hire more people in the USA, they will hire new sort of. So this, I personally feel this is important issue, but certainly it's not such a big issue. In these companies, all put together, 2015 got only 9,000 H-1B visas. That's 9,000. All the major IT companies. So it's more in media than in reality.
Right, Stephen, an interesting question emerges here. Do you think that Modi's visit could not have come at a better time? A country like India with its young population and ready markets, as well as commitment to free trade, and the environment and the democracy is making a mark, in fact, already in Europe. And can the US become a key player here?
Yes, I think there's definitely an incentive for that to happen. And although there are some in the White House who wanted this visit to happen at a later time because they think there's just too much else going on, and then they were worried about the lack of time to really prepare for it, it is a good time because the Prime Minister is catching the President of the United States before he goes off to G20, but after he's had his first trip where he was confronting Middle East issues, and then also appearing at NATO as well. And dealing with the G7 countries. So I think the timing of the trip is very good. And one thing I think that's also very important to mention, one of the signals that we do have from this administration, which has been criticized for not filling a lot of leadership positions, is that among the positions that have been filled, Indian Americans are well represented. Of course, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, a very senior position at Health and Human Services, and the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission, as well as some judicial appointments as well. So we know that Donald Trump, based on what he was saying during the campaign, has tremendous respect for the expatriate, the Indian American community here, and is also well aware of the contributions that they have made disproportionately in the Silicon Valley. So I think when Prime Minister Modi does bring up issues such as the H-1B visas, that he'll have a sympathetic ear, at least, with Donald Trump, who has had a bit of a hardline position, of course, on issues of immigration and visas.
Right. Steve, do stay with us, and also Ambassador, do stay with us. Our correspondent, Archit Seshadri, in fact, spoke to Raymond Vickrey, the former Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Let's listen in.
Let's talk specifically about Donald Trump and his presidency. You know, there's been a lot of talk about one of the most bizarre presidencies in the U.S., his handshakes, his use of bold statements, perhaps, contradictory statements. Give us a sense of that.
Well, I think President Trump is a work in progress. I think no man comes to this job, which is so overwhelming. You got the nuclear football following you around. You've got complexity on anything that's ever occurred in a real estate deal. Dealing with the Congress is not the same as negotiating what happens with an office tower. So I think the president is learning about that. Hopefully that learning curve will not take too long. I do believe that with what he's done and appointing people like Ken Juster is very helpful in that regard. He has some understanding about India. He's done business there, may still be doing business there, which raises another issue. But my view is that what we have is a very strong underlying relationship. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, is only 1/3 of the federal government establishment, much less what we have as a federal system like the Indian system, what happens at the state level, what happens in private business. All those are really a part of the U.S.-India relationship. Now, President Trump can move it forward, or he can be a handicap. And I'm voting for his moving it forward, and I think that he'll do that.
And lastly, let me also ask you, is he too busy with domestic policies, dealing with the Russian allegations, dealing with Obamacare, dealing with taxes, to address some of the more critical foreign policies, including the fight on terrorism and building ties with other world leaders?
Well, that is a distraction. There is no question about it, from basic security kinds of situations and what the U.S. and India need to do in regard to terrorism, in regard to China, in regard to what happens in Afghanistan, across the board. So it is a distraction. I won't sugarcoat that at all. And there are a lot of holes in the administration. We don't even have an Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia at this point. The ambassadorship is empty. And there are distractions, but as we say in the United States, you've got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. There is hope in regard to what happens on Monday, that those kinds of distraction will be put behind him for enough time to be able to concentrate on issues between the U.S. and India.
Let's talk about China and Pakistan as well. When you mentioned that, how crucial is that? Is Trump just playing a diplomatic game with all three countries?
I don't think so. I think that there's a realization that India and the United States is the relationship which is key. Now, India wants good relationships with China. They'd like to have better relationships with Pakistan. It is very worrisome that China and Pakistan, the One Belt, One Road coming through territory in Kashmir, all of those things are very worrisome, but that is an indication of why we need to be able to take this relationship to the next level. we have in place from the Obama administration, from the Bush administration, from the Clinton administration, the kinds of processes that can deal with those. And what the man at the top has to say, what President Trump needs to say is, yes, we're going forward with those, and then we can deal with problems like what happens between China and Pakistan.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You.
Well, we just heard Ambassador Mr. Raymond Vickers talk about the ambassador to India that Donald Trump has chosen very wisely. In fact, Kenneth Juster, who's had good relationships with India per se. And in what more do you think, as a businessman, Donald Trump can really offer?
Look, business has to both ways. I have written one article which says Modi may not be Chatur Baniya, but he's Chatur diplomat. He knows how to make deal. And here you're a billionaire president who has been making deals all his life. Modi says best deal a deal, and both sides think they won. That means win-win deal. Both sides have to give in. There are certain areas in which we look forward to. Now, what are the main priorities Trump has been saying when he became president? America first. These are kind of perception. Every national leader, when he goes outside, you are always talking India first, but the way you put such a way that sometimes it becomes more blunt than otherwise. Every leader goes outside, your country is the first. That's what you are really elected for. You strike a deal there. Now, Trump wants anything which creates more jobs, anything which gives more investment. Now, these are two things in which Modi can offer them. He can say, look, my program of Make in India and your program America First, there is no fundamental clash as such. You have found ground how both can really do. Now, for example, I'll give you an example. Modi is one of the make it smart cities. The US has huge expertise in smart cities. All cities are smart cities. You have Trump Towers all over. After President Trump ceased to be president, his business is still there. His family is still there. You have, I'm just not joking, I'm seriously saying, oh, you have Trump Tower in Varanasi, for example. You have 65th floor looking towards your heart. In the evening, you have Aarti, wonderful. You have Trump Tower there, you can Trump Tower, Pune is coming up, you can Trump Tower in maybe so many other cities. You have this Mar-a-Lago, his own resort. This is used, very important. But we don't have anything like that. Why not having something like this in Goa? Or something maybe in Mahabalipuram, you can have Bhubaneswar, you can have so many places. I'm just giving you an example. You have to have business. Secondly, green energy. Modi, US may be out of climate change, but we are very much there. Modi said we will honor our commitment. Now, how do you really honor your commitment? By going for green energy. Green energy, who has got technology? US has technology. You want to have less carbon emission coal technology. Again, come from USA. So you buy from USA these technology. You offer sort of opportunities for them that you please come. Defense sector is new one. You have read about Lockheed and Tata agreement. You may have many more. So there is some kind of carrot to offer to US. You come and be part of Make in India. We are not having your America First.
Absolutely.
When you have investment here, you also create job in India, but also create back home, create jobs also. This is not
right.
one side.
I'll come to you, Steve, on that interesting point made by Ambassador Kumar. With the Tatas, in fact, locking a deal to manufacture America's F-16 fighting Falcons, and, you know, with Lockheed Martin and the approval of the sale of 22 Guardian drones to India just before Modi touches down, do you think US has clearly indicated that their store is now open for business?
Yeah, I've been speaking with some of the people that have been involved over at the Defense Department with their Indian counterparts and working on deals. And the position from the Pentagon is nearly anything is on the table now. The store is open for India to come in and shop, and their frustration has been with still dealing with the red tape from the Indian side in getting some of these things moving forward. And I think this is something, if Ken Juster does become the ambassador from here to India, and all indications are that it is going to be him, this is a tremendous choice to help facilitate these sort of deals and also make the Make in India and the America First two slogans from the respective leaders mesh to some degree. Juster was a senior Commerce Department official in the George W. Bush administration. He's been the U.S. chair on the U.S.-India High Technology Cooperation Group. He has a deep diplomatic experience going back to the early 1990s and was a managing director for a global investment firm until he joined the Trump administration on the National Economic Council. So I see a lot of green lights down the road for this type of defense cooperation, and it's up to India, I think, to determine how far it actually wants to take it.
Right, Stephen. And Ambassador Kumar, the US, after all, despite its relative decline, still remains the leader of the free world. One cannot really just ignore that. And despite all of this, because it's well ahead of, in terms of technology, we talk about defense, we talk about space and every other field. Do you think Prime Minister Modi will be able to strike a good deal here now? I'm
very optimistic. Prime Minister Modi is very good at striking not only personal chemistry, but also important deals. Again, emphasis is deals should also be good for the other side. And I think he can strike a deal. I gave some examples of many other areas. Fact is that US may be in decline, but US is still going to around for many, many years. Let us not face any kind of delusion. China may be going ahead, but 95% of the path-breaking innovations, they all come from US. Once Raghuram Raman, when he was not governor, he said, look, so long as US has edge on the innovation side, very few countries can catch up. You can file all the patent, but in the end of the day, how many innovations come game changer? The US having all the innovations which can really take the lead over China. I personally feel that Mr. Modi and Mr. Trump, you will be surprised with the kind of chemistry Mr. Modi will, because he has mastered this art of striking chemistry with all leaders, whether it's Obama or whether Abe or whether Xi Jinping or Merkel, and you can go on naming. Even just other day, last night, you saw the Portuguese Prime Minister. In the US, and you see, when you address the joint session of Congress, the welcome is just by the number of what you call standing ovations you get and how long the ovations are. I judge Mr. Modi's success, how many times he hugs the leader and how tightly he does it. And you can make
he shakes their hands.
He was, you can imagine. Now, he went to France last month, or this month only. He met the French president for the first time, a new young man who is 20 years junior to him. And they were hugging each other. He had this kind of chemistry to infect others and also exude that kind of warmth. And I personally feel that two democracies must really come closer and work together, and it is good for both of them.
All right, and Prime Minister Modi, as Ambassador was talking, has reshaped India's foreign policy in many ways. In the first 3 years of his tenure, in fact, he is not hesitant to quote Israel while mounting pressure on Pakistan. And the Prime Minister has met leaders across the globe and is trying to position India as a global leader. His efforts are beginning to bear fruit, but challenges do lie ahead. His upcoming visit to the United States, in fact, his visit now in the United States is a continuation of his policy to develop strong ties with global powers. Take a look at this report.
My government has moved with a great sense of priority and speed to turn our Look East policy into the Act East policy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said while addressing the East Asia Summit in Myanmar in 2014. Indeed, Narendra Modi's first foreign visit as the Prime Minister was to Bhutan in June 2014. In May 2015, Narendra Modi would visit Mongolia. It was the first time any Indian Prime Minister had visited the country. But that never meant that the Prime Minister would limit his foreign policy to India's immediate neighbourhood. He is already on a three-nation tour of Portugal, United States and the Netherlands. And he is slated to visit Israel in the first week of July. In fact, the Prime Minister has made at least 56 foreign visits by April 2017. Narendra Modi has displayed willingness to project India not just as a regional but a global leader ready to provide leadership and assume responsibility. So it doesn't come as a surprise when the Prime Minister vowed to go above and beyond the Paris Climate Accord on combating climate change, despite Trump's US pulling out of the agreement. So what makes Prime Minister Narendra Modi board Air India One and fly thousands of miles to faraway countries? The reason is simple. India is now a part of a global ecosystem after opening up its economy in the 90s. And yet the country hasn't been able to reap the dividends in entirety. Foreign capital and investment remains a big challenge. World Bank has placed India at the 130th spot out of 190 countries in terms of ease of doing business. The Prime Minister wants us to break into the top 50. Our trade deficit was close to $14 billion in May 2017. 1 million Indians reach employable age each month, but the paucity of jobs hurts our growth. We are one of the largest arms importers. The Prime Minister wants India to acquire defense technologies to end reliance on foreign countries. If successful, it would save India billions of dollars every year. However, despite the Prime Minister's outreach, challenges abound. While immediate neighbour Pakistan continues to test India's patience, China too has adopted a hawkish approach. It will take many more foreign visits, delegation-level talks, and concrete follow-up action to propel India towards sustained growth. We'll have to quickly manufacture and acquire defense technologies to strengthen our armed forces for regional stability. And the Prime Minister would certainly assess Trump's policies when he meets the US President, even as Trump's US accuses India of eyeing American jobs and billions of dollars in aid. Bureau Report, WION.
Coming back to you, Steve, again. So, in fact, this whole visit is so significant for both the countries. Do you think there's a possible clash that we could see between America first and India first here?
No, I think that they're going to be portrayed as being complementary because of the deals that we've been discussing on the program, where they're going to create jobs in the United States and maintain jobs and open up new avenues of production and technology transfer to India. They are slogans that would seem to be exclusive of each other, but I think in reality that they're going to find ways, both leaders, to be able to tout those slogans and demonstrate that they're working for each other.
Ambassador Kumar, coming back to you with the same question. Do you see a potential clash between America first and India first? Because we know Donald Trump, he's been campaigning about America first and believes in his staunch idea for till eternity.
Well, I did comment about in the beginning, in general terms. I have been maintaining there is no fundamental clash as such, because each leader, he may not say so loudly, so bluntly, is really pursuing India first, US first, Russia first, France first. Otherwise, you won't be elected by people. You go back home, tell that you have brought this for India, or he goes back to it for US. But I personally feel, as Steve is saying, there is complementarity. I personally feel there is a two coin, two sides of the same coin. Both sides can really have national interest and also find some meeting ground which can benefit both sides. I enumerated a number of areas in which India can offer business opportunities for US, which will also sort of create jobs back home. Now, same is the case in India. We can have a lot of investment from the US, and you can have new technologies coming here, many people are employed here. Apart from that, let us not face, nowadays, outflow of the investment by the private sector Indian companies is much more the inflow. They are investing world over billions. Now, US can make it much more easier for them to invest. And I'm sure billions of dollars can again pour in. People may dismiss, but IT sector, NESCOM has been quoting how many $1 billion they have paid in taxes in US, how many thousand jobs they have created, how much they have contributed to the economic growth. So we must not simply brush aside and sort of reject what contribution has been made. I personally feel both countries have a lot to gain by cooperation rather than finding fault with each other.
Right, Steve, and just to continue what Ambassador Kumar is in fact saying, Donald Trump, as we know in the past, has lauded the Indian IT professionals in the Silicon Valley who've either been of Indian American origin or Indians coming from their home country. They've in fact had the opportunity to sort of bloom the whole startup industry in America. So that's something Donald Trump just does sort of recognize and elevate.
Sure. That's what I was mentioning before. He is very cognizant of that. And this is, he's a businessman. He's very savvy. And he may have stereotypes about groups of people in this country, and the Indian American community is seen as very entrepreneurial, very hardworking, and the fact that there were some prominent people in the community that were supporters of Donald Trump.
Yes, we do remember that during the elections, yes.
Yeah, won't be lost on him. And he is someone who rewards his supporters and tries to punish his enemies, or the people he perceives as enemies.
All right, Ambassador Kumar, do you have something to add to that?
I'm simply saying this perception of who is enemy, who is not enemy. As you know, in diplomacy and international relations, there are no permanent enemies, no permanent friends. What did President Donald Trump say about China during campaign? And here comes the Chinese president, and you say they are like a house on fire. So these are they are very seasoned politicians. National interests are paramount for the leader to serve, and they will use every means possible to try to get there.
Right, and Steve, if you talk about United States has in fact hinted at elevating India's status to that of NATO members in terms of supply of defense equipment as well. How will this move affect, in fact, India's relationship with China, or do you think that it won't affect the relationship at all?
I don't know. That's for India and China to determine. But in recent days, I can tell you, the senior White House officials that we have been speaking with have made it clear that they now perceive India on the same level as any of the other close allies of the United States, even if there is not the type of formal military alliance that exists between the United States and NATO or Japan or the Republic of Korea. But they definitely are putting India on that level now, and I think that is highly significant.
Do you think, Ambassador Kumar, that is highly significant that the US finally recognizes India as their strong ally?
You must go a little back. When Prime Minister spoke in joint session of Congress, what did he say? India has overcome the hesitation of history. Now, last year, we have understanding between India and US on logistics agreement. This is one of the most significant. Indian government have been hesitant because back home public opinion is all divided. But this is an indication of the kind of confidence you have. You let the two militaries share the bases, share the facilities, all of the formal agreement to sign it. But fact, this is a growing process. There's more and more confidence. The kind of Lockheed Tata agreement is just the beginning, tip of the iceberg. Because India needs huge and manufacturing bases created in India is something which really goes well with the public. It's not that you are really buying all the time, depending on supplies, not supplies. I personally feel that relationship is two-way traffic. It's not only India has to do it, but the US also do. They be selling and technology transfer, but we also be sort of paying after billions of dollars the same country which we have no defense trade at all in 5-6 years, $15 billion, and the sky is the limit. I personally feel it augurs well for both countries to cooperate, but it will be much more easier for any Indian leader to sell the idea in India if technology is also transferred, if co-production happens, joint research happens. All these things have been talked about. They are on the paper itself agreed upon.
Right, and Steve, the Indo-US partnership, in fact, benefited a lot due to personal rapport between Prime Minister Modi and former President Barack Obama. Can we expect the same warmth and energy in ties between the current US President, in fact, Trump and Narendra Modi? Will that translate, in fact, into further consolidation of the bilateral relationship?
Well, one thing, of course, we definitely know is Barack Obama and Donald Trump have very different personalities. But I think Narendra Modi is the rare type of leader who is able to strike a very warm relationship with both Barack Obama and Donald Trump. And all indications are that these two leaders are going to hit it off really well. And I think it's going to be very well scripted. There will not be a joint news conference. They will both read statements, but there will be no questions coming at them from reporters that could put one of them on the spot, or could send Donald Trump off onto a detour of discussing the Russia investigations or other domestic issues, the healthcare controversy that's raging here, while Prime Minister Modi stands next to him and twiddles his thumbs for a while. So we're not going to have any of that happen. So I think everything that we're going to see, all of the images that are going to come out, are going to show two leaders that are smiling at each other and enjoying themselves, which will be in stark contrast to some of the other visitors that have come to the White House since the inauguration.
An interesting point, Steve. In fact, Ambassador, do you also think that the two leaders will really get along and buddy all together?
I've been saying, I have written about it, coming from the state of Gandhi. Mr. Modi knows how to make friends even with those persons whom you can't agree. I won't be surprised that after the visit, you may start finding some yoga effect in White House, or maybe some vegetarian dishes introduced in the menu in the White House. I mean, Modi has an infectious warmth to generate, and I'm sure behind this warmth, Mon ami, is a very hard-nosed discussions, very realistic sort of negotiations and bargaining. But this is what the diplomacy is all about. The two leaders have find some way around things which you can't agree, but really go ahead and deepen in the areas which you agree upon. I personally, I am very, very optimistic. Both of it well. Modi and Obama are also not common. They are so different. And for Modi, he has been meeting all the different people from different areas. They are so different from his own lifestyle. But there's a human sort of response, body language, how you treat each other. And I think he's a master par excellence on this.
Right there, Ambassador has given his word on that, Steve. But, US is also expected to tighten the noose around terrorist organizations operating out of Pakistan. We've been hearing about this for a while. But will it also take any action against terror outfits that target India like Lashkar-e-Toiba?
I don't know. Look, this is a huge priority for this administration. They're going to want to find out in what ways that India can further contribute, perhaps in intelligence sharing. Now, this is one area where India is not on the level of America's closest allies, because there's something called the Five Eyes with the United States, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, where there's the highest level of intelligence sharing. So, India is not going to get onto that level. But it probably will get on the same level as perhaps with the NATO allies. And I think what we're going to see with the team that is now in the National Security Council, a much tougher line, perhaps more willingness to put pressure on Pakistan, and especially as the United States now formulates its Afghanistan policy, it is going to want cooperation from both Pakistan and India as well, although in very different ways.
Right, Steve, do stay with us. We're just going to play out. It's been, in fact, a package which has been less than 6 months since US President Donald Trump took office. And for the first time in his tenure, he'll host a working dinner with the foreign leader at the White House. Now, that leader will be Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is in Washington right now for a visit, in fact, for 2 days. It's an official state visit, so it's not like Modi's previous trips when he met Obama. WION's Archit Shashadri is in Washington, D.C. with the latest on what Modi will accomplish.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has officially reached Washington, D.C. He arrived Saturday night around 8:30 p.m. local time. During his two-day trip here in the nation's capital, he'll be staying at this hotel, the Willard Intercontinental in downtown D.C. He has quite a packed agenda. On Sunday, he'll meet with the CEOs of Apple, Google, Caterpillar, Johnson & Johnson, as well as Amazon. In the afternoon, he'll head over to Tyson's Corner, about an hour away from D.C., where he'll meet with prominent members of the Indian American community. On Monday, yet another packed agenda. He'll start his day meeting with the Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, followed by the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. Then in the afternoon, he'll meet for the first time with U.S. President Donald Trump in the White House. He'll have quite a bit of things to discuss. It's only a 20-minute conversation between the two leaders. They've talked on the phone before, but this will be their first face-to-face meet. Then in the afternoon, there will be a cocktail reception hosted by Vice President Mike Pence, followed by a working dinner with Trump. In fact, this will be the first time an Indian leader under the Trump administration will be in the White House for a working dinner. So we're not sure at this point if they'll talk about trade, technology, terrorism, or H-1B visas, but it could also be a strategic partnership between the two leaders. Earlier this weekend, U.S. President Donald Trump tweeted saying he looks forward to hosting his friend, a true friend, and hosting those delegation-level talks. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Archit Seshadri, WION.
That was our correspondent Archit Seshadri back in Washington, but he does make a relevant point here. He says, talking about strategic partnerships, Ambassador Kumar, Trump has not made it easy for India. Besides the H-1B visa issues for India's IT sector, and Trump's contention that India and China were demanding billions, of dollars for implementing the climate deal. In fact, somehow his facts really go wayward. Do you think this visit can in fact change or maybe straighten some of those facts?
I personally feel it should, because those figures that President Donald Trump gave, the blame must go to the officers who give those figures. They are factually incorrect. It happens many times. You have seen, go back to when Secretary of State General Powell in UN Security Council said Iraq has this. This is all information given by the officer. Later on proved to be totally wrong. No, India and China have not got, at least India has not got billions of dollars. The figure came in 2015, we got 100 billion. In 2018, it come down to 34 billion. So it's a very small figure. In fact, is that, look, strategic partnerships, as I have been saying, it has to be strategic for both sides. Can't be one side. You can't be demanding. When you are negotiating, you must give and take. Both sides will compromise. You find some kind of common ground on which you agree. We find strategic partner also. Steve referred to Pakistan, Afghanistan. Now, these are two issues on which India has some reservations. Many Indians feel US can do much more. Now, their perception of terrorism and ours is different. Let us face it, before Twin Towers in the US, nobody really talked about terrorism. They talked about it after that, but we have been suffering. We have lost 3 prime ministers from terrorism. We know what terrorism is all about. We live with this. Now, we feel that they can perhaps put more pressure on Pakistan to rein in. China is not very helpful. Masood Azhar, UN want to put on record, they have been blocking it. Afghanistan also, we have been seeing that, look, India has invested more than $2 billion, which is all kind of human resource development, roads, hospitals, and all kind of facilities, which US appreciate. But when it comes to dealing with, US sometimes want to talk to Taliban, good Taliban, bad Taliban. No, we think both are not. There is nothing called good or bad. They are bad. In the sense, terrorists are bad, with whatever name it may be. Now, then they have been trying to encourage some role for China in Afghanistan. There's certain that does not really gel with the Indian strategic sort of objective. So we have some difference, but I personally, these are not insurmountable differences. The leaders of the two countries can find ways to cooperate. We are not wanting, yes, Pakistan has its stakes in Afghanistan, but so do we have. We have to be a player there. We cannot be excluded any major decision. And if you want to find a solution through Taliban, I think past experience have been forgotten. After all, US ejected them from there. And again, you want to negotiate with them. They have not changed what they have done in the last 15 years to sort of warrant that kind of treatment that you can be a negotiating partner or you can't trust them, you should not trust them. I feel that we have some strategic differences, but we can surmount them, we can overcome them. Other strategic differences on China, South China. But if China-US relations grow further, how far US is prepared to counter or to advise China not to pressure all her neighbors with whom it has got territorial disputes. It started Philippines, to Vietnam, to Malaysia, so many countries have been scared. So long as they can, as I said in the beginning, so long as they can be persuaded to play by the international laws, we have no problem with that.
Right. Steve, do you agree with Ambassador Kumar when he says that the two leaders do not have any massive differences? They can in fact cement ties and not be standing against each other?
Yes, I think right now that's a very good assessment of the situation. But these are very early days for the Trump administration, which has faced criticism that it really has neglected the South Asia region, and in India to also specifically has been neglected. But there are those who say that that is unfair. And I think with this visit that India is coming front and center. Now, could there be some issues that could cause some friction down the road, especially if the President of the United States doesn't feel he's getting adequate satisfaction on from India on addressing the trade deficit? Sure, that could happen. But I think all signs are very positive right now. But when we start to talk about Afghanistan and Pakistan and terrorism, and the United States has obviously looked at things very differently depending on who's in power, which administration we're in, and even within administrations over the years. I think we saw that with the Obama administration. And now we're talking about more U.S. troops going back into Afghanistan, and there's criticism domestically here Congress about spending all that money, and but it's not only just treasure but blood as well, without having some sort of objective. And I think India's input into that will be by President Trump, and maybe not during this visit in great depth, but Prime Minister Modi will have an opportunity to put across his assessment of the situation with Afghanistan and Pakistan and issue recommendations, and perhaps help formulate the president's thinking on how to look at terrorism in the region. President Donald Trump, we can tell from his public comments and his tweets, looks at things in a very much a linear fashion, black and white. And as the ambassador will tell you, the world is a much more gray place. It's complicated. There are lots of nuances. And presidents learn that after a while, even if they come in to office thinking that they can solve all of the world's problems very quickly.
All right, Steve, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. Also, Ambassador Kumar, for giving us your time here in WION. Now, while we're slipping into the break, ahead of the visit, key stakeholders in Washington talk about what this means for them. Let's listen in.
India is still a very promising market, and there's still quite a lot of enthusiasm. But there's also an effort to understand what's happening in India. What's the impact of demonetization? What is the GST going to mean for U.S. companies that are involved? What are India's plans and infrastructure that might affect the ability of companies to get goods into India and manufacture goods out of India? These are all questions that CEOs are likely to have.
There are a lot of positive statements which have been made by Trump administration about India, and of course there are some negative comments also with respect to Paris deal, climate deal. So it is a mixed bag. But at the same time, India-US collaboration and cooperation is at a multidimensional level. We are having a strong collaboration on the terrorism front, how to combat terrorism. On the front of national security, defense cooperation is at a very peak, and there are so many other things which we have common interests. So therefore, I would say that there might be some differences here and there, but overall, it will reflect the strong and enduring partnership between these two countries.